And then there's called a leaf tip, which basically it looks like kind of a backwards V. All different sizes. We tend to use a slightly larger one. And then the smaller your spatula is, it's a little bit easier to, you have to, as I always say to the students when they're coming in, you have to know your tools. So make sure you have the right tool for the right job. And then we have a rose tip, which we use as well, that has a small opening on one side. So it's always better to get those kind of assembled first. So once you start going with your cake, you can just keep going instead of stopping and starting. So I know I have my rose tip bag. I have my leaf. I'll move these out of the way. And then also, to make the roses, we have these, what they call rose nails. And it literally is a nail on the back that's put on this flat surface. Different sizes. There's smaller ones. I tend to use the larger ones because I can make small ones on this one as well as large ones. With the small one, you're restricted to making smaller ones. So this is kind of, I have these. I almost never use these. I tend to do the bigger ones. So we have our leaf tip, we have our rose tip, we have our nail, and then one basic tool that everyone has, our scissors. I know a lot of times in class they'll teach you to put a little bit of a square piece of paper on here. A lot of classes when I was younger and looking at doing that, that's what they showed. That's how they show you. This is much more efficient, and in the long run, it's much easier. So what you're going to do is use your nail, and don't rip it like this because you almost need to roll it between your fingers. You're going to create a cone. So that's kind of your bud inside the flower. So you have those little layers in there. And then you have to just do petals where you're going to come up and come down. Come up and come down. Come up and come down. So you have 3. So with flowers, you always want to think of odd numbers. And then once you do the first one, you can make them as small or as large as you like. And the softer the buttercream is, I'll do that again. It's a little bit harder to make them sit nicely. So you make your cone. And also, you want to think about coming in on it because they naturally want to fall out. So I'm kind of pushing in because I know when I grab my flower off, and I'm kind of doing a V2. I'm not closing it. I'm not going like that. I'm just kind of pushing it off and holding it. So it's a very loose pressure that I have on there. So 3 is your magic number for the first one. And you can stop and you can make slightly smaller ones too. And I promise you, once you do this a few times, it is much easier. The trick is also not to have a huge grip on I can't express that enough, just make it really light to the touch when you're holding the nail because you need to be able to roll it. And then for those that want also, and I'm going to do 3 because I was told by an aunt of mine who's an art teacher that 3 is always a much nicer number. So we rarely do 2 by itself unless somebody specifically asks. But we like to do clusters of 3. Do one more. And, depending on whether there's an inscription going on there, we might do less. These are full roses. The other thing that you can do are just little rose buds. And I'll show you. Maybe I'll show you in here first because it's harder. It's 1, 2, 3. And that's a lot of times what we do on the cake. We just fill in. We'll do some roses, and then we'll do rose buds around the rest of the cake. So for those that want less icing, they can go for the rose buds. The ones that want the full roses, they have theirs as well. Then you can also do it on the side. So I always start, just so no one gets too nervous. If you ever see a little spot like that, you're going to cover it up with a beautiful rosebud. And for me, it's always up and down, just so it's not so. You want it full, but not too busy for us. And then you come in with your leaf tip, and you kind of just put as many or as few as you like. So you come in, do some on the border. Everybody gets nicely finished. Add a little bit of color. Oops, come back here. And if your buttercream ever gets soft, you can put it back in the bowl, put it in the fridge and mix it around for a little bit, and it'll get hard again, and just use it to the right consistency. But there you have your rosebuds, your roses with your buttercream leaf. Easy as cake.